I've been dabbling in hi-fi audio for over 40 years now. And for over 40 years, I've been setting up my speakers the wrong way. And I'm sure you have too. Stay tuned for how not only can you do it the right way, but you're going to get a better sound improvement than any amount of money you could spend on any component at any price point by simply setting these up the right way for free of charge. I'm really excited about today's topic. It came about by accident. I have been, for a while now, as you've been following me through my audio adventure, I've been upgrading gear and equipment and cables, and it's been great, but I've felt as though now the gear is better than where I was able to position my speakers and set up my speakers. Now keep in mind, this is a mixed use room. It's a family room. We've got a TV over this side of my shoulder. We've got the kitchen, the dinette area. So we are limited somewhat as to not being able to get the absolute perfect place, but we can still get it in a very good place without taking over the room. And I'm going to introduce a new friend today. In the past, I've talked about my British buddy. Today, I'm going to talk about my high-end dealer buddy. And I'm going to refer to him as Mr. Dealer. Mr. Dealer is a very good friend of mine, extremely knowledgeable, deals with ultra high-end stuff, really knows what he's talking about. He's given me a lot of tips, he's given me a lot of advice, so I value our friendship. I was talking with him recently and I said, you know, I feel like I haven't been able to get my speakers dialed in appropriately. And he said, Michael, I have got just the fix for you. But before I get to that, let me give you guys a quick update on the status of our audio adventures. Very excited for these things. These are AGS, they're from Japan. These are the floor diffusers that I had seen that actually go in front of the speakers on the floor. They are going to help with your vertical waves between your floor and your ceiling bouncing to break that up. They've got smaller ones, all different sizes, like this. We'll put, you can either put on a wall or in front of a TV to break that up. Now, these come from Japan, and before I hear there's always that one person, well, I can build that. Go build it, okay? Nobody cares that you can go build it. They have spent years playing with different materials, density woods, different sizes, different shapes, different distances and all that, and they've perfected it. So I'm very excited to give that a try. And if you want to go build it on your own, go for it. But I'm not here to build the stuff. I'm here to get the best sound possible. So I'm very excited about that AGS stuff. We'll be talking about that in the next several weeks. Tube update. Got the tubes finally dialed in on my VAC tube amp. I'm going to be doing a separate episode on that. I had actually done, I have a tube I didn't tell you about, the Mullard. The Mullard tubes were good, they weren't great. We've tried a variety. I found a combo now which is spectacular in my opinion. So now I'm moving on to refocusing on NOS tubes on my tube DAC, my Aquila Scala DAC, where through a variety of testing I settled on the Mullard tubes on that. Now that I've come across this new tube combo and I'm upgrading some things, I'm going to try some other NOS tubes. So I've got a variety of NOS tubes that are actually over there. I'm going to switch to the Audio Adventure Action Cam. You can see the Aquila Scala. It's topless because I'm burning in those tubes. And then finally, I think you can see in the picture way over there is a black box, a big black box on top. That is my Sony receiver, my cheap Sony AVR receiver. I bought it last Black Friday. I think I paid like $200 for it, virtually nothing from Amazon. And I use that as my burn-in unit so that by day it's hooked up by the TV. When we're watching TV, it's playing through the speakers to burn the speakers in by day, and then at night I simply turn on music coming through it. So I'm burning in the speakers 24 hours a day, but I am not putting any use on my NOS tubes and on my tube amp. So where these speakers, I'm putting about these Tobian 12FH speakers. Yes, these are new. They're different than the Fine Audio. We'll have a review on them coming soon. Putting about 300 hours of burning those in. That's 300 hours I'm not putting on the actual speakers. So it makes life actually much more affordable, because I guarantee you I've saved more than $200 in NOS tubes. And then I'm going to be getting more speakers in later this year. And if I do 300 on each one of those, let's say times 4 or 5, it adds up. So that is the update in a nutshell. But now let's get back to the main premise of this video. We're talking about how do you get the best sound possible from your speaker setup. I have watched just about, or seemingly feels like every video on YouTube on placements. I've seen the 1/5 rule, the 3/5 rule, the 70% rule. Everybody's got a rule. Everybody's got an absolute, the equilateral triangle. None of them ever sounded fantastic for me. Got them sounding great, but I never really felt as though, I always felt like I was missing out on something. That something just, I was missing out on that last 15% of what I knew I could get from the system. So in talking with my Mr. Dealer friend, he said, Mike, this is what you need. It's a book by Jim Smith, Get Better Sound. And I said, well, you know, I've heard about it. I've read reviews. Some people say it's amazing. Some people say it's everything they already knew. He said, I'm telling you, get the book. So I did. I got the book. I don't think the book is in print any longer. I got it. I actually found a new old stock one off of Amazon. The other thing I will recommend, I did this afterwards. I should have done it before. You can go to his website, and I'll link to it down below, and you can order the PDF. It's like 18 bucks. And you can use it on an iPad, iPhone, laptop, whatever. It is so well worth it. I am going to give you an abbreviated Cliff Notes version. In no way, shape, or form is it meant to take the place of the book. Trust me, get the book if you want to get great sound. I'm going to cut right to the chase. He talks about how you get your speakers kind of, and your setup kind of 85% of the way there, and then the last 15% of the way. All I've done is really the 85% of the way, and the reason being is these speakers aren't fully burned in yet. And I tried it with the fine audio speakers I had before this and these. And I will tell you that at his 85% of the way, I have gotten better sound than I ever did at my 100% of the way in any other previous setup. It is a massive difference for me in this room. Basically, the way you approach it, all you need to buy is this: the book, tape measure. I use a laser measure as well. I like them. They're easy. And then I also bought this little nifty angle measure, and I'll tell you why in a minute. The first thing you start off with is what is the dead center of your room from wall to wall. Now, he does get into, I'm going to keep this simple, he gets into the what if your room is off balance, what if your rooms are odd shapes, and I really valued the off shape because this room is really weird. It's got all these angles. It doesn't really have any parallel wall whatsoever. It's the weirdest large shape, and it's about 21 feet wide, and it's 32, 33 feet long. But it's got all these weird angles. So software doesn't help, because I'd probably spend a year trying to enter in all the right measurements for the software just for it to spit out what it thinks is right. So I measured it, and what I did is I took the tape. Oh, the tape is the other thing you need. I bought a couple of different types. I bought the 1 inch, and then I bought the 1/8 inch. I bought the lightweight, the painter's tape, low stick, low tack, so it's easy to pull them up on the carpet and on the tile floors and things like that. And I found where the dead center of the room was from side to side. And I was already kind of astonished, because it was 6 to 8 inches off where you visually think the center of the room was. So I was already 6 to 8 inches off in my previous listening. Drew that center line all the way up to the front of the speakers. And then he talks about putting the speakers in a rough position as to where you think they're going to end up going, or where they kind of need to go. You do that, and he wants you at that point to focus on putting pink noise through the speakers. And I was actually able to find a link to pink noise that is between 25 and 300 or 400 hertz. And he wants you to only focus on that frequency range, up to about 300 hertz. This was contrary to everything I had ever heard. I had always heard, well, do the speaker crawl or do this. You want to put the speakers in your sitting position, and then you're going to walk around on your hands and knees, and you're going to find where the most bass is, and that's the best. If I understand his book correctly, he talks about that not being the best, because you don't want the most bass output. You don't want the least bass output. You want to find where you can get the most even keel. And what I did is I simply used a free RTA analyzer on the iPhone as I was playing the pink noise through the speakers. And I found where between that 25 and 300 hertz, it was the most flat. It's never going to be perfectly flat, but the most flat frequency response. You're going to walk around with your phone in where you think is about the general area of where your seating position is going to be, and you're going to find that there's a huge difference and a huge variation in where you think the seating position should be and the sound. So that he wants you to find that best place for the seating position first, and then mark it. And you're going to find minor increments can make a big difference. But of course, you're going to be doing this at ear height. If I'm sitting this high, I'm not going to be keeping the phone this high. I'm going to find where my ear height is in my seat, and I'm going to match that with the phone. Now that I've got the listening position or the seating position figured out, it's time to figure out speaker positions. And he talks about a 83% rule where, generally speaking, in his experience, about 83% is the magic formula of where your speakers from middle of tweeter to middle of tweeter are 83% equal to the distance your listening position is. So for instance, if from the tweeter to my ear is 10 feet, 83% would be about 8.3 feet, the speakers being wide. Now, he talks about different types of speakers and variations from 70% up to 90% in his experience, and what he has found over the decades he's done this to work best. But it's a starting point. I did something a little bit different than him. I'm going to cut now. You can see the tape grid I put on the floor. And what he had done is he had put the tape grid in his book, the way it's shown. He did the tape grid equal to the angle of your speakers. So if your speakers are angled like this, the tape grid is going to be like this. What I did is I simply took my tape and I outlined a giant box on this side and on that side, about 2 feet front to back and about 3.5, 4 feet wide. And I started approximately 2 feet off the center line for each speaker. And I marked on that outside line, that outside big rectangle, 1-inch increments on the X and Y axis. And then I came in with my blue tape, which is why I've got so little blue tape left. And I simply quickly made the grids in 1-inch blocks. That probably took 30 to 40 minutes and a sore back because you're bent over the whole time. But that's key. Then what I did is from my sitting position, I had the wife, we started the speakers on the innermost block, the little square, and I moved them in, he talks about 6-inch increments. I was moving them in 3-inch increments to start. And then as I moved them out wider, I found the place where the width worked, and then we also worked front to back. And by having the 1-inch blocks, it was very easy to move them consistently and in sync with each other to find the place where I got the best sound. It also aided that when I had the wife start to actually angle them in, again, because of the 1-inch blocks, I knew each angle was more or less accurate to my seating position. It was pretty astonishing because I ended up right where he said I should. I ended up 1/2 inch off the center of the room for my seating position, and my speakers ended up at right about 80 to 83% of his rule. That got me in that sweet spot where the speakers were just hitting right behind my head. That really was astonishing in the sound that I got out from it. No other speaker positioning I had ever done got me anywhere close to this. No other speaker positioning I had ever done using any other method ended up with the speakers and the chair where his method did. And it was absolutely astounding in terms of the performance that I was getting from this. I mean, I was giddy about it. I couldn't stop listening to music. I was texting Mr. Dealer saying, oh my God, everything he said turned out to be right. He also talks about the difference between diffusion and absorption and how it's easy to have too much absorption. And when you use diffusion versus absorption, the different types of diffusion, like do you want to use a silk tree from an aesthetics point of view? It's really an in-depth book that covers a lot of it. I will tell you, if you get nothing else other than him showing you how to place the speakers, it's the best 18 bucks I've ever spent. And it is absolutely, if your speakers were not dialed in correctly before, will make an astonishing difference in what you're getting out of your system. And I'm going to tell you, do this before you upgrade any other gear. Because if you're not getting the best out of this gear, there's no point in upgrading. He also has, it goes into a little bit of the difference between, we're here in Texas, we've got a concrete slab. That whole side of the room is hardwood floor. This side of the room is tile, which is very common in Texas. And I have a throw rug here, an oriental throw rug. But he talks about the tone difference between tile floors and wood floors and subfloors, which is really interesting. I don't want to spoil that because I'm telling you, you need to get the book. And then the little angle thing that I got is because these speakers have got angles on the front. And by using this, I can make sure, because he talks about making sure your speakers are angled just right and at ear level. I can use this to make sure that the angles on these speakers match and are exactly the same, because if you use a tape measure and you measure from the bottom of the speaker to the floor on both speakers, you're going to have different variations based on the carpet, based on even the tiles. You know, they're not perfectly level and all that. So you're going to have variations in that the tape measure is going to throw you off, whereas this angle meter will get me just right. I think I spent $29 on this from Amazon. Again, I'll link to it down below in the comments so you can see where I got all this stuff. But it's absolutely astonishing the difference it made. And I can't wait. This weekend I'm going to be playing with these speakers. They're going to be about 300 hours burned in. And then in the next week or two, I'm going to be doing the AGS diffusers. I'm going to do a whole video on diffusion versus the absorption. And I can't wait to get this stuff done and play with it and let you know what I discover. So please comment down below. Let me know what method you use. If you've had problems with getting the speakers right, if you've read Jim Smith's book, let me know. I'm very curious what you find. And let me know if this helps out for you as well.